Hi, this is Angela with this week's Living the Shift. Have you noticed that all around us we have detoxing going on everywhere? We have all the muck coming up everywhere. It seems like everyone you talk to, it is like every single thing that doesn't serve them in the highest and best way is coming up to be washed away. And in many cases, many don't realize that it doesn't serve them in the highest and best way because their ego has told them that it does, that their life does, that what's in their life does. And we have done this great job at disempowering ourselves and allowing others to tell us what is good and what's not, what a good life is and what's not, or what the right thing is, or what the best thing is for us. And we've adapted that. We've allowed ourselves to adopt that as our truth. When our soul might be saying, oh, no, it's not for us. No, not that. There's no boxes. We're releasing the boxes. And so what's happening is all stuff is falling away. And it's falling away faster and faster right now because we are going through this great period of acceleration. We are progressing very quickly. And in doing so, what's happening is all of this deep stuff is coming up individually, collectively, in all these different collectives, simultaneously, and at the Earth's level as the entire organism is shifting. And in shifting, it's funny. So I'll go a little woo-woo on you here. About a couple years ago, I was shown by my guides on how the shift would happen, and that there was sort of like this one Earth matrix was overlaying the current one. So there was like the fifth dimensional Earth that was overlaying the third dimensional Earth, and it was like right at the point that I was shown that the three-dimensional Earth was still more solid and real than the fifth dimensional Earth, and that as time would go on, that it would shift until that third dimensional Earth would just disappear entirely. That's the reality we're creating. That's what this ascension, quote unquote, is all about, and the shifting, from my understanding. And, we can talk about the spiritual stuff and all the prophecies until the cows come home. But, we're also going into the photon belt. Our solar system is shifting into has this year shifted into the photon belt, just the beginning of it, in our galaxy, which by definition of the physics in the photon belt causes us to actually raise vibration and become less dense. So that makes it easier for us. It gives us more space for bigger and larger concepts and understandings, and realizing the connectedness of everything. So that's even going through the science part of it without even talking about the spiritual, well, I would say the non-science, but it's all spiritual. It's all some part of it connected. So we are doing this. We are shifting, and we're at this point of, for some whatever reason, in reality it is, we are speeding up. Everything is accelerating, and I have noticed in the last 6 months how amazing it is on how so much is coming up for people. And it might not feel so great for many. It depends on where we are on our journeys. Whether we've decided from the etheric level that we are going to totally rip off this huge band-aid, or we're going to do it little by little. That's our individual journeys. But we're all coming to this awesome point of, because we are getting ready for the next level, because we're cleansing ourselves to be at this next level of existence at a higher vibration and stuff, we are cleaning ourselves out. So on our physical bodies, what happens when we have a cut? It bleeds. Part of the bleeding is to push out impurities and cleanse the cut and get out stuff that's going to, infect the body. So that's what we're doing spiritually, but for ourselves, and again, collectively, and the Earth as an organism is all this stuff that we have built down, we have repressed into us, all of this ego-based friction. And by that I mean fears and anxieties and regrets and rejections and resentments and anger and guilt and doubt and sorrow and pain. All of this stuff that doesn't serve us, we have buried down and pounded it in, and hid it in a corner and said, I'm not going to look at it. Well, guess what? To shift into a higher vibration, it's time for us to release that. It's time for us to cleanse ourselves of these spiritual impurities, so to speak. We are getting rid of the stuff that doesn't serve us. Because if we hold on to it, it festers and becomes bigger, and we feed it. Just like anything in a cut. So we've done it long enough. We've done it and done it and done it and done it. And, whether we have hundreds or thousands of lifetimes that we've done here, we have really, truly expressed these lessons to the umpteenth degree. And now we're ready to move on. So, a great indication of that is what is going on around us, on our individuals, our collectives, our institutions, our world, on what is coming up to release. And everybody thinks it is them that has the worst, that they have the worst situation, the worst suffering, the worst drama, all of that kind of stuff. And those are beliefs too. But because of the fact that sometimes it sometimes feels like we're swimming in mud, and I totally get it, totally. I even have times myself, and I work on myself every day. So, and I've been doing it for a while. So there are days when I have, and I have been trained, and I have trained myself to be able to look at it, to work with the collective, to insert healings into the collective, in different collectives, and be able to look at it without getting myself dragged into it. And yet there are still days that I have that I find it challenging. Sometimes I feel like my feet get stuck in the mud, even though my head's above water. And I look around me, and I know there's many who feel that they are just going to drown. But here's the difference. When we get to the point of surrender and releasing and allowing this stuff to go, and we release our judgment, because our biggest judgment is on ourselves. We judge ourselves worse, and the reason we project our judgments onto others is because we don't want to look at it. We don't want to look at the judgment we have on ourselves. And that, again, goes back through the filter of duality. It goes back to our need to decide that there's a right and wrong and a good and bad and all that kind of stuff. And when we can release that, and when we can truly release judgment on ourselves and on others, and we can just look at the events and say, what were the lessons to learn from this? What was it I was supposed to learn? And then process it, process it, and then release it. Then that's called fluidity. That's called staying in the flow and allowing it to flow through and releasing it without holding it up with these resistant emotions. And it's time for us to learn that. It's time for us to release the resistance and realize that it has been all an illusion, and the whole thing was the duality experience. So in doing that, we are looking at so many different causes, and the reason that this is all coming up is because our higher selves are saying, okay, it's time for us to reach our ultimate purpose, the ultimate soul purpose of what we wanted to do to make us blissful in this consciousness. And anything that doesn't serve us, let's just trash it. And that's what we're getting to the point. That's the ripping off the Band-Aid. It's time to let it go. And the degree to which we try to hold on for our dear life without letting it go, even though it doesn't serve us, and we think it might, yes, and many times we think it does, that's really where the friction and the problems come. How many people are comfortable in their jobs because what their ego is saying is, oh, well, look at the job market out there. Look at that, and hard to find another job, and we're in this comfortable position. Yeah, I might not have had any growth for the last 10 years in my job, but you know what? I have a job, and I have a paycheck. And we get lost in that that comfort, right? And what'll happen many times, especially right now, is if the higher self's going to come knocking. Hello. Yeah, this isn't what's going to make us happy. This isn't what's going to give us our bliss. It's time for us to, shove on off and find something new, or start looking towards something new, or where we can shift to. And the more we ignore it, the more this pressure builds up and builds up. And the universe, the higher self, will come back and knock again, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times, until finally you will get a bomb put under your butt, a metaphorical bomb put under your butt that says, all right, that's it. So guess what happens? You lose your job, or something drastic happens that, you get hurt so that you can't perform your job anymore, or something like that, so that you are forced now to turn in another direction. So in many respects, all this muck coming up is because collectively, the higher collective is saying, yeah, time for us to get rid of these boxes, these egoic expectations, this egoic friction, and the judgments that we have just totally repressed, ourselves, and and hidden a shadow side to ourselves that makes us feel like we are unworthy of being loved when we are unconditional love. And it's time for us to come back to that realization, and time for and to come back to the knowledge of the divine beings that we are always unconditionally loved, no matter what we have done. It's been part of the experience. And when we can release that filter of duality, filter of judgment, and just look at it as that lesson, then we can release things so much better and say, you know what? I know that was okay for my parents, and I sort of lived that for a while. It doesn't serve me. I went into that field because I was told, my parents told me that was the only way I was going to make any money, and I couldn't make any money doing what my heart really wanted to do. But you know what? I'm going to start pursuing this. And I might still hold on to that job for a while because it is some kind of security in this version of the world. But I'm going to put it out there that I'm going to pursue this, and I'm going to allow it to happen because I'm allowed to do it. I am allowed to follow what my heart desires, because that is ultimately what we've been here to do. Enough of the drama and the trauma and the illness, enough of martyrdom and sacrificing ourselves. It is time to come into our full truths, to come into our full divinity and bliss and happiness, and remember what it is we came here to do. And the biggest change in understanding is, and change in practice and living this shift is how to listen to what our heart is telling us and what our higher self is telling us. I did this presentation as part of a workshop this past week with two other panel. It was a panel of 3, and we're talking about creating abundance. And one of the panelists talked about how the truth of our ultimate truth actually sits in the sacral chakra, which is behind your belly, and where women would have their sexual organs, and I think it's considered part of the man's too, for like in terms of etheric chakra thing. And it comes from where you have your power. And that's truly when you can step in your own truth in full access to your divine power. That is where that comes from. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Don't really think of it that way in terms of spirituality, because we talk about the heart being the seat of the soul versus the mind. But then I heard that, well, it is true, and both are true, because the memory and the knowledge of the truth God does come from the sacral chakra, and the truth is expressed through the heart. So when it comes up from the gut and out through the heart, then that is a pure, higher self understanding. When it comes down from the head, and I've talked about this in other webcasts, are we thinking from the heart, or are we feeling from the head? When the feelings we have come from the head, then that is egoic based. And when it comes from the gut and through the heart, then that is truly our higher selves, and that's truly our truth. And the key is to quiet the mind, to look at our beliefs and what we think is going to make us happy, and then we need to ask ourselves, why do I feel like this will make me happy? How many times have we thought something would make us happy, and then we got it, and then we weren't so happy? Well, that is because there was an egoic disempowerment that happened. And disempowerment meaning somebody else told us what it was that was going to make us happy, and we allowed them to tell us what was going to make us happy, and we accepted it for ourselves. Then we got it, and we're like, yeah, maybe not so much. And it happens a lot. So the key is our next step, our evolution is, and the best way for us to learn how to release this muck is to start to ask our heart, to ask our soul what it is we came here to do, what it is that's going to put us in our bliss, and then thanking the ego for its job and what it's taught us throughout this existence, but then also realizing that it's the higher self that has the whole game, that sees the whole game board, that has the whole picture of what it is we came here to do and what we wanted to do to be blissful, and to resolve all of the other stuff and release it so that we can embrace who we really are and get to the next level. Because I guess that's what it's all about. And on that, I'm going to let you go. We'll talk to you next week. This is Angela with this week's Living the Shift.